Okay. Give me your love, give me your love, give me your love, give me your love, give me your love. Hey, okay. Hi, Frank.
Hello there, Robin. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for stopping by and sitting down with Robin.
Not a problem. I'm excited to do it.
I'm happy that you're here. Welcome back to Sitting Down with Robin, and happy spring, everyone. Tonight, as I promised on Sitting Down with Robin goes blue with Frank Taylor, meaning I'll be with a police officer. I want Frank to actually tell us a little bit about himself. So, Frank, would you be able to tell our followers, my followers, about your impressive career and a little bit about yourself before we dig
Yes,
in? Thanks.
yes. I worked on the Montclair Police Department for 26 years. I served as a detective and a regular police officer, and my job there was serving on the streets, accident investigations, regular patrol. I worked the desk. I worked probably many facets on the police department, and I worked there for 26 years. Um, then I moved south to Georgia in 2008, and 2 years ago I joined the Henry County Sheriff's Department. So I have a vast knowledge of law enforcement, and also I was a criminal justice major at Florida A&M University, and so I had a wealth of background in the criminal justice field, and that's why I went into the career of law enforcement. And I can say that I have two grown kids. I'm married. I have two grown kids, and they have their families. So
Wow. That's very impressive, Frank. It's really impressive. And I want to do this because there's so much information out here that cops are bad. Cops are not bad. I actually love cops. Well, I want to start off by saying that I do support good, honest police officers. So let's remind everyone, if you want to comment on this segment, please keep all of your comments respectful. Okay. So first of all, Frank, I'm going to go and ask you questions. You can just answer
yes,
each to the best of your knowledge, honestly, however you see fit. Okay.
I will.
Okay. First, I want to ask you, to get things started, what is the blue wall of silence?
Well, the blue wall of silence means that all cops, and specifically speaking about good cops, stick together, and anybody wearing a blue uniform sticks together. Now, we don't uphold or condone bad bad cops or bad policing. The blue wall of silence is basically if you see one of your brother officers maybe inebriated, drunk, had too much to drink, then if you could help him out, you would take him home and turn him over to his wife. It's the kind of thing that you stick together like that. Some things you can't help, like in domestic violence situations with police, because at that point somebody has to be taken in. And when we come there and see that somebody may be battered or broken up, then we have to make that decision which party leaves the house. Usually it's the man, because he's usually the aggressor in the situation.
Mhm.
But there have been times where the woman has been the aggressor, and then we'll have to take her out. But no, on a normal circumstances, if there's kids involved, they'll leave the woman at home with the kids, and the man will have to
Okay,
go.
that's understandable. Well, in your opinion, does it affect the police department? Do you think that that blue wall of silence has an effect within the police department? Does it affect anything in a negative way?
Well, it all depends on the circumstance at the time. I mean, like for guys not to speak for wrongdoing, yes, does affect the police department or the police agency. But a lot of guys don't speak because they're trying to protect their own, just like anything else. However, if
Can't hear you.
it's going to be publicized anyway. So
Okay.
yeah, and so at that point, wrongdoing is wrongdoing.
Wrongdoing is wrongdoing. Well, my next question leads me, do you think municipalities should rid of the blue wall of silence?
Um, yes and no. Yes, in the fact that, cops are known to stick together through thick and thin. And I mean, guys can argue back and forth, but when it comes down to getting the job done, you're all one family. So, and then on the other side of the spectrum, if somebody's doing wrong, then they should be turned in. And wrongdoing is never condoned because they don't train us to condone wrongdoings.
Right. Okay. This is going to be a question that is on a lot of folks' minds. Why do Black cops that see injustice, meaning racist acts, stand by and allow things like this to happen?
Well, a lot of times it's because they don't want, they know that they have to continue working. And if they have families to support and things of that nature, they might not want to talk about things that may not be right so they can keep their position. So I'm just saying that a lot of people don't talk because they may be afraid of losing what they have and being picked on by their other brother officers. And so a lot of people just will say, well, I keep my mouth shut.
Mm.
Now, that doesn't make it right or wrong, but that's just the reality of what's going on. And that happens with all cops, black or white. They may not say anything because they don't want to be looked at as a bad guy.
Right. Well, in the recent George Floyd case, as an example, we saw that the cops that were with what's his name, Chauvin, that the cops helped him. Like they didn't help the cops that were his partners actually stood by and watched this act go on. But I noticed in the courtroom, the cops didn't stand by it. They didn't stand by him. And I was happy to see that. How can you expand on that?
Well, that's because the two officers who were on the scene there, they were supposed to be young rookies right out the academy, and they only had a week of experience. So they really didn't know what to do in a situation like that. Although, had they radioed back to their precinct saying that they needed some assistance, I'm sure they would have been off the hook. Now, even though that they were out of the academy for a week, number one, that other officer had that had his knee on his neck. Um, he was their training officer, so they looked up to him, they respected him, and so that meant a lot to them. So that was why they stood back and didn't do anything. However, these guys, before they took the job, they swore on the Bible to uphold the law. But once you swear to uphold the law and then break the law, then something usually is done. And that's what they're trying to sift out now in this case.
Wow, that was just sad. That was really just sad, and I feel for their families. I feel for their families. Um, I don't feel for them. Let me get that straight. I feel for their families because they have to endure what's going to become of them now. All right. So my next question: do you feel that cops get a bad reputation from civilians? Because we really don't have an idea of what you guys face on a daily basis. But do you think, for the most part, the way cops are looked at today, that they are really getting the bad hand, the bad side of the stick, I should say?
Yeah, yes, because in a cop's mind, his thing is to be able to come home every night to his family. And what the cops endure out on the street on a daily basis, day in and day out, is tough. And you have to be a special kind of person to be able to endure that, and then come home to your own family. So, like everybody has their little things that they have at home, but then you have a job that you have to do on the streets, and you can't mix the two together. And so this is when problems arise, when you had a bad day, and then if you don't have a understanding spouse, girlfriend, or whatever the case may be, or family members, if you don't have that, it can be definitely a tough thing and a tough job. And like, guys feel like they're all alone because this business is the kind of stuff that you can't really talk about it to other people
Right.
who are not involved in what you're doing. So like when you come home and somebody says, what happened over on Jones Street, so to speak, you can't really elaborate on it. And so you have to hold it all inside and be tough. Now we see all kind of stuff. We see um, people getting hurt, people dead. We have to go tell families about people who have been killed, and that's a tough thing to be able to do. Look somebody in the face and tell them one of their family members is gone. But on the same hand, um, our job, you wear many hats.
Right.
So whatever hat calls you to wear that day, you have to be able to do it. And that's the thing that is tough because, like I say, you do wear many hats. You only have a few seconds to decide what you're going to do in a lot of cases. And if you're wrong about anything, then you could lose your career over just a few seconds. Now, so this is why this job is very tough, and it's the kind of work that you're very happy to get it. But then once you get it, you have to do the right thing to keep it. And just as easy as you can get it, it can be taken away from you. But you just have to realize that you have to do everything within reason. And with things like today, there's a lot of things going on in the world, and I think it should go back to more training and better training in the academy, and that's where it all starts. And
That's
if
going to be a question of mine. So hold that right
okay,
there. That's
mhm.
awesome. And I was listening to something that you said about how you all have to keep things in. Do you think that that leads to why there's so much frustration with the cops on the beat that are on the street? Do you think that all of this is like uh, affecting their psyche?
Well, yes, it does wear on you when you deal with this stuff day in and day out on a daily basis. Every day is different for us. There's no day that's ever the same because when you go out there, you face all different challenges, trials, and tribulations. So every day is a different day. It's not like the average job where you go to work and sit behind a desk and everything is pretty much the same. You come into contact with different people on a daily basis, different circumstances, different things. But whatever you come in contact with, you have to be able to handle it. And that's tough, especially for a young officer who's just coming out and trying to find himself on the job. And then he sees all this stuff going on. It's like a culture shock to him because a lot of these guys don't know what they're up against. So they actually get out on the street. See what I'm saying? That's one thing that the academy can't teach you is how to act when something happens. I mean, they can teach you what is right to do, but now you're out there pretty much like your own boss. So you have to do what you know is right to do and what you took the oath for. I mean, our job is to serve and protect. And if you do anything other than that, then you're not doing this job.
I understand. Speaking of culture shock, um, I always wondered, why do they put, I mean, this might be a stupid question, But I always wonder why we don't have our police policing their own neighborhoods that they understand, neighborhoods that they may have grown up in, especially in the urban areas. Like, because for a lot of times I think that unnecessary shootings from cops are because they're afraid, because they don't know what to expect. They're afraid of the neighborhood. They may have come from the suburbs and grew up in the suburbs all their life, and then they're thrown into neighborhoods that we call rough, you know? What do you think about that? Why do they
Well,
do that?
well, see, sometimes it's a staffing issue. You may not have the staff to put the so-called right people in those spots. This is a job that you have call outs, you have different things happening with guys' families, which may take them away from the job. So, it's the kind of thing that when things happen and you come to work, you have to put out there who you have. And so a lot of times it may come down to staffing. A lot of times, if they have the staff, you got sometimes guys are working injured, so they're on light duty, so they can't go on the street. They have to find other jobs for them within the precinct, and that goes for black and white, Latino, or whoever you're talking about. But a lot of times it's more like a staffing issue, and when it's just like a team. When a player gets hurt, you got to go with the next man up. So if somebody's not available to work and that was your area to cover, then you have to go with whoever you have to work with. But any guy that's on the job should be able to handle any area. But a lot of times that's not the way it is, but they should be able to handle whatever area they put them in. I mean, you should be able to go to work and somebody puts you in an area and they know the job is going to be done, because that's what the taxpayers are paying you for, is you to do the right thing in any area, not just a black area, white area, Latino, Hispanic, or what have you. So whatever area they put you in, you should be able to excel.
That's going to bring me, I'm going to skip a couple of questions and then go back to these, because now you're bringing me to another topic. Training. A lot of jobs, as a realtor, I have to do every 2 years of training, continued education. Do cops need to do that? Do they do that? They need to have continued training, continued physical training, continuous psychological training to stay on top of how they need to behave on the streets. What do you think about that?
Well, yes, in law enforcement, you have several schools that you go to for different things. I mean, you have some guys that are accident investigators. You have some guys that are homicide investigators. You have some guys that are um, narcotics investigators, juvenile investigators, and regular detectives in the detective bureau. So training is paramount in a police department because it's always something coming out new. And when the state or the attorney general's office puts out new guidelines, then they bring it to the police departments immediately.
And how often is that training?
Now, well, they have all different kinds of training. See, training run now, the academy training is 26 weeks. Okay. In that 26 weeks, you're taught basic things, but then when you get out on the street, it's a lot different. So, like the academy is more so by the book, but then when you get out on the streets, you have to do things maybe a little bit different because that's the way it is. So, I'm just saying training is a thing that um, has become very popular in police departments, because the more training you have, the better product and the better officer you're gonna put out on the street. I know that with all the stuff that's going on in the world today, the academies are probably going to start extending um, some of the weeks that they have so that they can get some of these points across to their officers, because so many things are happening in office with officers today. Um, with negative press and everything, that's going to make the attorney general's office, whoever makes up all these guidelines for police, that they're going to make it a little bit more strict and a little bit tougher so that you can put a better product out on the street. And that's
Amen.
just, that's how it is. I mean, that's what it's all about, is serving and protecting. So if you can put a better guy on the street, you might have a better chance to overcome a lot of these obstacles that we're faced against today.
I hope
And
that.
this is why a lot of these departments around the world now they want their officers to be college graduates. So they think that a man graduating from college may have a better head on his shoulders than a man just coming out of high school, man, woman, or whoever else.
Well, they
So
become more well-rounded, right? They become
yes,
more well-rounded. Let me
yes.
ask you something. Now that we have cell phones, do you think that's a help or a hindrance to the police officers? I
Well,
already
I
know
think I
that.
think I think the cell phones help because if you're doing right, it's going to help. If somebody gets in a scuffle with you and they're beating on you, I mean, that cell phone can help capture some things that may be an intricate case, a piece of a case. So, the cell phones are good. Um, they can help you tremendously. And if you're not doing the right thing, they can hurt you tremendously.
But isn't that why we have the body cams? They have the body cams.
Yes, that's why you have the body cams, the dash cams, so that anytime you activate your lights and get out of a car, that dash cam is recording, and the body cam is recording also. So if you walk up to a car and start talking to a person and they curse you out, that's all being recorded. A lot of times people make traffic stops and then the driver says that the person said something that was derogatory to him. So the body cams, the dashboard cams, and the tape in the police car are all helpful aids to protect the officer. And that's why they're in there.
There you
And
go.
towns and taxpayers will spend a lot of money to get this equipment, this high-tech equipment, because it's needed for officer safety. So that's the bottom line, is officer safety and letting people know that they have now the resources plus the equipment to make their job a little bit better and easier.
That makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you about this. What are your thoughts about police returning on the beat, walking the beat, as they used to say? Walking the streets, walking in the neighborhoods, getting to know the kids in the neighborhoods, getting to say hello, where kids want to look up to an officer again and want to be a police officer. Now kids don't want to be police officers anymore because they're not looking up to them. They're told bad things about them. So what do you think about police going back on the beat, walking the streets, knowing the convenience store owner, knowing the little lady over there in the greenhouse, knowing the kids playing kickball? What do you think about police officers going back to the old ways of walking the beat?
Well, I know that walking the beat is a very special tool. Like in the town I work for in Montclair, New Jersey, we started out walking the beat. It was a lot easier for me because I knew everybody pretty much in town. So walking the beat for me was very fun. I could go in different places, into the park, Glenfield Park, or up and down Bloomfield Avenue, and people would see me and we would stop and talk. You go in and out of stores, the movie theaters, and what have you. Walking the beat is a way for that officer to identify with the members in that section he's walking in. To be able to get back with the community, let the community know him and understand him, and he understand them. So when something happens, they won't be afraid to come to him, and they can come to him and confide in him and feel good about doing it. Now, today, a lot of people are afraid to talk to police for various reasons. So getting back to the walking cop, that's good, but now because of numbers, the numbers game, they may not have the resources to have the people walking.
Wow.
And so that's the thing, resources and the money and all that. Now we used to give grants to the walking police, and that's how they got hired, through the grant. So then once the grant money runs out, then they have to cut that out, because now your staff is short and you have to get guys in in specific positions on the street to be able to carry out the load in the cars and going on calls and things of that nature. So a lot of people have done away with the walking officer, but it's a good tool to have if you can pull it off. But if you don't have the manpower, you can't pull it off.
Which brings me to my last question. If we can't do that, if we can't see this happening, walking the beat back in the communities, how, oh how can we rebuild trust in our communities with police officers?
Yes, through through the DARE program, that's when the officer goes out to the schools and talks to the kids about police safety, drug awareness, and things like that. And like when you're a DARE officer, you go out to all the elementary schools and talk to these kids and let the kids see you and know who you are. Like just like in Montclair, we have a lot of the police officers who coach the Cobra football. So that's their way of giving back to the young kids in the town. And that's why the Cobra football is such a success, and it feeds on through high school. That's why Montclair High School is a success with football, because a lot of these fellow cops took the time and coached the Cobras and helped coach and help get equipment and help provide and help make these kids understand that this is a stepping stone for high school. And that gives a kid a lot of
Right.
hope that one day he could be that high school star like a lot of people were. So this is the kind of thing of giving back. And they don't get paid for doing that. They're volunteering. However, it's a good thing because, as you know, it gives a good tradition, and Montclair always has a good tradition with sports, but football is the main thing. And when these kids can identify with the officer or their coach, who is their coach, now they have a twofold. They get to see him as a coach, and then they get to see him out in the streets working. And that's a big plus.
Wow, Frank, you answered these questions so perfectly, like I knew you would. And honestly, I love it. All right, so this is going to conclude my questions with Mr. Frank Taylor, who we love. If you have any comments, if you want to ask him some questions, make sure you go on my page, Sitting Down with Robin, and comment, ask questions. That's what we need to do to get back with the community officers. We need to start getting along. Make sure you keep your comments respectful, okay? As you all know, Frank, I want you to stay there. As you all know, I always mention a few businesses, okay? I'm going to do that right now before I close out with my song. First, I want to introduce Christina Dakers. She's with the Dakers Group. She's a marketing strategist and coach, okay? I'm going to leave her information on my page as well. I had some information with her right now, how you can get in touch with her if you own a business. I'll get back to that in a few minutes. But also, um, excuse me. Also, I want to mention Amira Howard, New Jersey realtor with Williamson Realty. Her contact number is 848-219-3126. She's a go-getter. Winstina's a go-getter. If you want to build your business, use that marketing strategy. If you want a home, contact Amira. I'm going to also mention the carpet cleaner with Joseph Alexander. Courteous, clean, and complete. His phone number would be 201-761-9555. Last but not least, I do want to mention someone for your belly, okay? LaShawn with Lucky's Little Lady Catering. Healthy food with a twist. Her IG is Lucky's Little Lady _ catering. And I do want to give you Stina's information. If you want to contact Stina, hello@winstinadakers.com. That's hello@winstinadakers.com. She's giving, she's offering one free 30-minute solution session now. So contact her. And I'm going to put this on my page as well. My closing statement will be, we're going to stay with this police officers for a while, for the next couple of weeks, because it's just too much hatred out here. I will be visiting the Piscataway Police Department, the local police department, and letting you see the insides and talk to the chiefs and the detectives there as well, with their input as well, okay? Now, Frank, take us on out, okay? Hey, sitting down with Robin. Frank Taylor today. I appreciate you, Frank. I appreciate you, followers. Hey, this is my theme song. I love. Bye. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks for bringing me on, Robin. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.